Edit audio.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Hopkins, and this is Well Adjusting, where I talk to people about life stuff, but not in an NPR way. It's more like we're at the bar, having cocktails, getting into your business sort of way.
It's giving drunk NPR.
Oh, and producer Steph is here too.
Hello.
Today we chat, well, when the world is hostile to your very existence. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Well Adjusting. Now, if you happen to be new here, me and producer Steph, we listen to your problems, we make you feel a little bit less alone by telling you how messed up we are, and then together, we think of some things that you might be able to look at differently. Now, speaking of that, today Marz joins us for Pride Month. Woo! They're non-binary and trans, and they're feeling like when they walk out into the world, they're experiencing outright aggressions and then asking themselves, well, when is the fear real? When am I conflating it with my own shit? And is looking at the news on LGBTQ issues helpful, or is it just sort of like, picking a scab? I mean, this is a big conversation, especially during a time in our country where Marz and folks in the LGBTQ community are being stripped of rights and protections. So let's all take a big, deep breath and let's jump in and see if we can offer some hope and maybe some help.
Hey there, I'm Marz. I am the co-founder and CEO of Certified Crucial. I have been doing all things podcast and audio related since I can remember. And I am non-binary, trans, and I use they, them, their pronouns.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
I'm struggling. I feel like I'm just so outside of society. I feel like I'm having a hard time fitting in. And it's difficult for me because when I am online and I am in my, little echo chamber and safe space, I'm pretty normal. Not only am I pretty normal, I seem to be well received and, I have friends and people interact with me. But then I leave that safe net of the internet and, I walk outside and the way I am perceived, the way I look, the way I dress, the way I am is scrutinized, and it's jarring to be so well received and feel part of a community, part of a society, but then to go outside in the quote unquote real world and not feel that way at all. So I wanted to talk to you about how I can better navigate those jarring dissonances that I feel.
Well, I mean, God, we have so much to unpack in that, right? But I want to start with a couple of things. Like, you said you were in an echo chamber, or where you're well received. Can you say more about that? Is that like when you're online, you're only in spaces where people know you to be who you are and where people would be supportive of who you are? Or are you saying there's a visual component? Or are you saying all of the above?
Yeah, I might be saying all of the above because when it comes to Instagram, let's say, social media, those places, listen, absolutely, if you're trans, you're getting a follow. So I have a pretty robust queer following. But outside of that, I do try to follow some things that aren't necessarily within my, my perspective or something that I align with. I follow some people that challenge me just to have some idea of what conversations are had. But that being said, algorithms will be algorithms and they prioritize what I most am interested in. And so it does end up being this space where the people that interact with me, the people that I see so often, have similar interests and beliefs in me. So it just creates this kind of feedback loop of, for me, it's like, oh, most people understand this. Most people get me. Most people understand that non-binary is just a normal gender, or agender is just a normal thing. And then, again, the gender roles, I think that's really at the core of it for me, Robin, is like, I am so deeply impacted by who I am, right? My authenticity as a trans person. And so to be seen so brightly and so vividly in one space, but then to seemingly have the lights out when I go outside, it's Well,
it's like you're talking about something that every single person is impacted in that way, because the way that things have gone with the internet, we're all now in these weird bubbles of people who are I can't understand how we're in the current political climate we're in, because I'm like, who would have voted for this person? Because I'm in a world of people who are around me who are saying the exact same things as me. And I think naturally the people that aren't, I'm like, I'll talk to you a little less. So it's like, I think that's happening. But then you have this whole other thing on top of it where you're part of a community that's actively being victimized. Like people are trying to take away rights. People are trying to, hurt people in this community. So it's like, then you've got all that on top of it, so I mean, I'm saying that just to say, I hear you, like to start, like it fucking sucks. But which is like really the therapeutic term is it fucking sucks.
I like that
and
one.
we'll wrap. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This was a really good show. Thanks for coming on, Marz. But I want to ask like some more questions about like when you go out into the world, do you find that it's like, are people saying things to you, or is it a feeling, or once again, is it all of the above?
Yeah, all the above. But to just give you a really specific use case here.
Yeah.
I am non-binary. I'm trans. I'm just about 2 years post-op on my top surgery. Still smiling about it. Very happy.
Yay,
wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And what I can say about that is, again, I am non-binary. I am not a trans man. And while I do present a little more masculine, I'm still non-binary. So that being said, I don't really fit nicely or neatly into these gendered areas. So to go out into the public spaces, obviously bathrooms have been a conversation for a little bit now. And,
oh my God, for so long. Yeah.
Yeah. And to, dive into a little bit of my personal story with that, I only 2 years ago got top surgery. So prior to that, I had breasts and I was able to go into a woman's bathroom. And even though I was still non-binary, right, like that didn't change and I still presented a little bit more masculine, I had body parts that made it appear like I passed a little bit more. And so even though there was confusion when I walked in and there was still a jarred, response to how I entered, it was like, okay, you know what I mean? Like there's some wiggle room maybe there. Now, if I were to enter, let's say, a woman's restroom, it is the uncomfortability. Maybe it was at like a 3 or 4. We have escalated to like a 7 or an 8, a 9, a 10, depending on where I am in the country.
Stopping what they're doing, stopping washing their hand and giving you the look, that kind of vibe, or being like, why are you in here?
Yeah, all the above. From being genuinely scared to see me there, to being upset, to angered, to saying things, all of the above.
Well, I'm just so sorry just to start, because it's like the fear. I feel like that is propaganda that has been pushed down people's throats of what's going to happen if someone comes into a bathroom with the opposite gender. What's going to happen is you're all going to use the bathroom. Like the Alamo, like, do you know the Alamo Drafthouse? I don't know where you like the movie theater.
I don't.
Oh my God, it's my go-to happy place. And I can't even believe that I'm making this transition, but it's a movie theater that where like food and drinks at the seat. But the ones in Brooklyn and in Manhattan, the bathrooms are commodes, and which is like doors and then urinals. I'm not scared if a dude, because I'm a little bit like, I know what you're doing in there because you're in this one, but that's about as far as it goes. So it has been hyped up so much, and that really fucking sucks that you have to go through that. So I just had to say all that.
Thank you. I've been saying it for a little bit, Robin, this commode situation that you're talking about. Like if we just go into the bathrooms, add about like 4 to 6 inches on the top, 4 to 6 inches on the bottom, like
they have full closed doors. They have full closed doors, and it's like it's not that deep.
Yeah.
But so like let's come off the bathrooms before I just go down an entire rabbit hole about commodes. Because we all know I could. But like where else is it showing up for you outside of bathrooms?
I want to come off of bathrooms as well. I just really quickly want to say that reminds me of, we are talking New York City spaces, and that takes me to gay panic, like these gay panic laws where it can be used as a defense to have just seen somebody queer and act violently towards them just out of the fact that it was jarring to you that they were queer. So I think that law in and of itself kind of bodes into what I'm saying with, I've had issues with different systems, like when it comes to policing. I have had cops say things to me. I've had them be rude, aggressive. I have had a lot of experience just in public with looks. It's not the worst thing to be me. I love being me. I love going outside. I love talking to people. I also enjoy just like being outside and seeing somebody who like maybe wouldn't have interacted with me, but for some reason here we are. We're looking at each other and they're just like, wow, you're actually an interesting person. And they kind of can get past it. And that type of interaction right there brings me back to, Harvey Milk and this idea of if people knew that the people who they feared were actually their lawyers, brothers, cousins,
Yes.
we're just everyday people, then it shatters that belief. So I do want to say that, it's not just like I go outside and it's just rage, but it is something, it's a different experience. What I can confidently say is I was raised AFAB and socialized as a female growing up. I then became very, a little bit more mask and was non-binary prior to having any type of surgeries. All of these experiences, now I'm post-op, all of these experiences, living and experiencing gender have been different, and how I walk outside in every single one of those. Not to ramble or be on a tangent here, but it just makes me come back to, gender being a performance, and the way that it is performed truly is received differently and reacted to differently, period.
What's so interesting is like one of my kids, my son, he uses they, them for everyone. And it brings me to like, what I'm thinking about for this conversation is like, it's going to get better, I think, with the younger generation, or I believe it is, because like to both my kids, like gender is a construct to them. They really are just like, it's no big deal. Who cares? Now, granted, they've been raised in my house though. And we are in a bubble of New York City. They've got lesbian parents, so it's like, okay, they're much more probably open. I don't know if I'd be saying the same thing if I lived in, Iowa, like Nebraska, Missouri. I don't know. So it makes me think about this larger question of like, right now, today, I don't think any of this is going away. We have like an administration that is hell-bent on dividing us. Fear is being stoked, like bots want our division as well, like other countries. And this is a hot button issue to a certain extent, and we're in it. What can you do about it to support yourself and make yourself? Because it's like, you are this lovely person who walks in the world. And if a person is open enough to sit down and talk to you, one, they might understand your experience. And two, then they can make a decision on if they like Marz or not. Not Marz is this, and therefore I'm afraid of them. Marz is that, and I don't like them because of that, or I'm scared of them. Like whatever judgments people are making. But I don't know if we're in that world. And so I think my question to you about that is, how does that all sit with you?
I mean, I think transparency, honesty, authenticity is where I'm always going to lean. And I think in being my authentic self, that would be saying it's scary. The news does frighten me. And I do wake up every morning and search. I have my search terms, queer, trans, gay, just to see what's going on, if I'm still allowed to be in a space, or what's happened to my rights. It is a morning search of mine, so that's become routine.
I want to ask you this question about what you just said about your morning search, because it reminds me of like how I feel about politics and climate change and all of those things. When I'm more dialed in, I'm more scared. Do you find that to be helpful to you to do that? Or do you think it's possible it could be? Because the reality is you're going to wake up and exist, and you're going to go about your day. And like, if you knew something bad was going to happen to you because you are non-binary and trans at 11 p.m. tonight, but you can't avoid it, and then you spend the whole day scared, or if you didn't know and then the bad thing just happens, like either way, the bad thing is happening. And I think this is a horrifically bad analogy that I'm making, but I want you to, I'm just trying to see, like, is it better to live in that space of fear, or is it better to put more positive and happy things in and interactions with people that are not that?
Yeah, that's a great question. They say ignorance is bliss. And
it really is sometimes.
Yeah, is that really where we're leaning? I think another reason why this is a great question is because I, during the first administration, worked in news radio.
No, Marz.
Yeah.
No.
Yep. But that being said, there has been censorship. There has been a change in our media, how we're receiving information, being so dialed in. It was like, oh my gosh, I know everything. But now being on the other side of things, I feel I actually, upon answering this question before, I would have been like, yeah, ignorance is bliss. Like, please, I wish I didn't know any of this. But now I feel like I actually do feel like I'm getting less information. I do see the censorship that's happening, and that actually scares me more. I'd rather know what's going on, and maybe not from like my love life or like, what I'm going to be 17 years, but for like my rights and like how I go about my day to day, the transparency, knowing what's happening is going to give me more solace than this censorship and not knowing that I even have access to the information that I have. It's one thing to just ignore the information if I want to, but to not even know if I can access it or if it's going to be correct, those types of things, I think they scare me more.
Well, what I want to follow up on that with, though, is this question. One, you're enmeshed in this community, so I don't think there's a danger of you not knowing. And then the second part is, if they're hiding the information, which they are, you checking news alerts isn't going to give you the real information, but it is going to give you the anxiety. Mm-hmm. So, like, look, with this new administration, I 100% just shut down. I turned off Hulu Live because I was like, I don't want access to the news channels because I know myself, I'll be like this. Did they get it now? Did it change now? Was this the thing that he did that sent us over and then people are going to get it? And the answer is no. And the only thing I'm not informed on is like I missed a march because like I didn't know there was that big day because I was like so shut down on the news. But I have like Apple News and I check written like maybe once, twice a week, maybe. And I look top line and then I go, oh, and then I check out. So I guess it's a very long-winded way of saying, is it doing the thing you're saying it's doing?
So not to give you another story here, but I
love a story.
I think another example of kind of what you're talking about here is Florida, right? So I live in Rhode Island, and my top surgery was in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Hey, shout out Dr. Gallagher. She's an amazing surgeon, and I have some, particular health needs, and so she was there to do it. Also, she invented masculoplasty. So shout out Dr. Gallagher. Please check her out, anyone who's interested in top surgery. We had a surgery scheduled, and I'm not aware of anything going on in Florida. I live in Rhode Island, so I'm not checking the Florida news. I don't need to know any of that. But my top surgery was canceled due to the Supreme Court and rulings surrounding surgeries involving gender assignments. And so I was 31 at the time.
Yeah.
A 31-year-old adult having their procedure canceled because of the systems in place here. So getting caught blindsided like that, I had no control. It's my body. I still have some unpacking to do there. I mean, to tell a fully grown adult, again, I just feel like a loss of power, a loss of control. Yeah. It really gutted me, to be honest with you. But
that's the thing you're upset about, though. Not the knowing or the not knowing. Is the loss of control and that someone made a decision about your body without your consent. That's the thing you're upset about. And I think the thing I'm challenging is knowing would not have changed that fear.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think you're right there. I agree with that. I think what I need then, or what I'm looking like, how do we combat this is I think where we're doing. And the not knowing piece, the like checking out isn't, I think that only enables this administration and everything going on. And so it's like, how do you balance being checked in and finding ways to actually get control back?
And by the way, just to be clear, I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm just like, I think in looking at it, you almost have to pull apart every single little thing that you can do because we're sitting in a shit bucket. Again, another therapeutic term, shit buckets, like it's in the DSM 305.
Right.
So like we're sitting in it and no matter what we're doing, we're in it. What can we do to make the bucket as palatable and smell as nice as possible and feel like we don't lose all of our autonomy because someone put us in the bucket?
I think that's like the thing is like, it's trying to not conflate the fear with, when you're looking at the news constantly, there is an element of like, okay, well, I'm in control of this. And I think it sort of like calms the like, when you're anxious about something, like you're like, oh, I look like what's something stupid? Like, I look fat in these jeans. And so you text like 3 people and you're like, do I look fat in these jeans? And they're all like, no, you look hot, you know? And then you're like, okay, well, I didn't confirm my bias. And so now I like have like a little bit more control or something. Like I have like I feel like checking the news constantly kind of like fills that void where you're like, oh, I have a little bit more control of this situation. But in reality, like, you don't. Like, knowledge is power, but like knowledge 29,000 times a day is not power, you know? And I think.
And they add in, but this could happen. And this could happen. And all those things that could happen are horrible. Those things are horrible.
You know, if we recognize that gender's performative and that, like, we can't control how people react to us, like, there's no control in that. So how do you feel safe and make the impact of it after the fact less sticky? So, like, my question is almost like, not what's happening, but, like, how does it stick with you? And how do you come back from that? Because, like, the shitty answer is that, like, people are always going to be shitty, and, like, we are in it, and you are in it in more ways than others, and it's heightened right now, and that's real, and that fucking sucks. And it's not like ignore the news and like don't show up at anything for anyone. Like, that's not going to help. But like assuming that we're all people that are already like doing the most for our communities and showing up, like, how are you taking care of yourself and making the ways that it is like harming you less harmful?
Yeah.
I guess, can you identify like the ways in which it like sticks with you, or the times when it feels like extra icky, and we can like, you know, decipher what would be a nice thing to do then? Or like, are there things that make you feel really lovely, and maybe we can find ways to bring those more into your life?
Did you see how Steph took my shit bucket and then made it be like something that we could actually talk with? Thank you, Steph. Thank you.
It's just the moments that it sticks with me are, I think, when it's in my face. Like when I have, you know, like even conversations with people that, and I think we all face this, especially round 1 of the administration, just to find out like, hey, people that I thought loved me, people I worked with, people I thought we all got each other. And then to realize like, oh, you have a very different belief system than I do.
Yes.
I think that is one of those moments where like, it is just in my face. And, you know, for me, it's like, hey, I try to be empathetic and see humans for humans. And I think a superpower that we can all aspire for is just being able to, you know, recognize differences that we have with other people. And while we can understand that we have those differences, be able to listen and have a conversation without just like fully writing people off and just reacting. And so I try to give grace and have those conversations and try to understand maybe this led to this, you know? Oh no, it's like watching a true crime and it's like, wow, they did some stuff, but I mean their childhood, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so you try to empathize and like rationalize these situations, but at the end of the day, it still happens. And so how do we get around that? Coping skills, but I'd love to hear kind of what you all think.
I mean, this is not a coping skill, but I was watching Subway Takes the other day. And do you know the comedian, actor, amazing person, Rami Youssef?
Yeah.
I love him. But he had this Subway Take. And I, like, at the beginning was like, I whole ass do not agree with this. Like, he started it with, like, there are no bad people. People are good people at their core, and they're infected by stuff. And, you know, they're, like, going back and forth. And he's like, no, I can name, like, 9,000 bad people. And Rami's like, no, that person is infected with, like, capitalism and fake news and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I mean, that's, like, a silly idea to be like, oh, this person is infected with capitalism. But it was at the core of it. I was like, that's actually a really interesting way to look at things, to be like, you are not all bad, but you are like wicked wrong right now. My therapist always tells me, like, when I have problems with like my parents, to talk to them like they're children. Like, picture them as like small 4-year-olds, and like, how would you talk to that person? How would you address them? And it, like, this is like another way of doing that, where it's like, oh, you're just like a stupid little baby, like, and you don't know about things. And I hate that for you. I'm gonna like tell you my own thing, but like, you're not all bad. Hopefully this is just like something that's going on, and hopefully we're like working at like the system of tearing it down, but it's not like this person is a hateful, horrible person and they're gonna like hurt me, you know?
Well, you're talking about like leading with compassion. Because it's like, I'm always like, why do we have to be the compassionate ones when we're the marginalized people who are being, attacked, whether it be physically, emotionally, or through our rights? So it's like, why do we have to do that? But it's what do they say about forgiveness? You forgive the other person for yourself so that you don't carry it. And so like, I think that the compassion piece is part of it is like what you were talking about of them being affected is remembering that I do truly believe, and I don't know if people are going to come for me on this, but like, I do believe that a lot of these people are just, they're being stoked with fear and they're uneducated and they don't know a me, a Steph, or a Marz. Whether it's about us or whether it's about immigrants, they're being told that we are taking away from them and they are responding. And it's bringing out hatred. And I'm not saying, great, go for it, keep doing it. I'm not saying any of that, but I'm saying all I can think about is I don't want to carry it. It's not mine to carry.
That's the problem, though, is like when I hear you say that, I'm like, well, I don't want to feel bad for them.
You don't have to feel bad for them, but you can feel compassionate. That's different.
And you can have the compassion for yourself. Like, I like that reframe that you say. It's like, okay, it's like, yeah, not having it be so heavy on you.
What do you think about all this, Marz?
I'm taking all this in, and I think it's making me think of my therapist, actually, Steph. Oh my gosh, 2024, the lesson that I learned, if nothing else, I learned that I can be understanding and care about other people's mental health. I can be empathetic to their mental health, but that is not an excuse for the way that they treat me.
Yes.
And so
you can still protect yourself.
Yep. And so just understanding like that is all them, and whatever that means for them is what that means. But it's not an excuse for how that impacts me. And so I can understand. And I think that's where I was coming from before with like, I can like see them for who they are and try to like piecemeal maybe their history and how we got here. But at the end of the day, I think it also just kind of hurts, to be honest with you, to, put myself out there, be vulnerable. And in vulnerability, I also mean it's vulnerable for me to be empathetic to you in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just to not have that be reciprocated, I think, again, in its core, it's upsetting, it's frustrating, but it hurts. It's just like it's almost dehumanizing sometimes, or it is dehumanizing sometimes.
Yeah.
And so just kind of navigating, we can be empathetic and understanding, but I think for me, what does it come back down to then? Is it, fine, then we have understanding for these people and we just need to like find ourselves and how we cope with living in a world full of people like this. So I guess the conversation brings me back to just community and how important that is to be able to have people who, Steph, you can hit up and say, do I look good in these jeans? Or, hey, like, are my top surgery scars, like, don't they look so good today? Like, I just need like a group text, I think. Maybe that's what it is. So maybe we can find somebody for me to like group chat with.
Hello.
Well, it's us, obviously.
All right.
It's obviously
rude.
Hi. But I think some of the healing is in the talking, is in these conversations. Like, I mean, I'll walk away from this being more like dialed in, being more empathetic, being more like thoughtful about it. And then also asking myself a question of like, well, could I be more involved? What could I do to be more involved? And like, how can I talk about it in the house with my kids? And how can we, like, what can we do to live in a way that is what it is? I think it's like keeping an eye on the scale, building your community, talking to your people, self-care, wellness. There has been hate in this world since it began, and that is never going to not be the case. It's just you're in the line of fire right now, times 5. Mm-hmm. So you need times 5 support.
Yeah. And I think it's that like, one mean thing, it takes like 16 nice things for one mean thing to disappear kind of thing. It's like, okay, maybe now at a time where there literally is more negative messaging coming into your like ether. First of all, like, can you control getting less of that if you feel like you can with still being safe? Like, absolutely. But also, like, how do you get more of those like little external validators too? And like, probably all the psychologists are gonna be like, you shouldn't need an external validation, but like, we're getting external discrimination. So get that text about your ass or whatever makes you feel good,
That was a bar though, Steph. I really like that about like, hey, we're getting external discrimination. So yeah, like sometimes it is needed just to have that validation. And I agree, obviously, like at the end of the day, it needs to be internal. And we need to have that self-love. But we're social beings, we're social creatures to really be able. That's, I think, the core of how this conversation even came to be. It's like, hey, I love myself and I think I'm awesome. And then I get validation online and people think I'm so cool. But then I walk outside and it's like, oh, you're not cool.
But I would say about that is that you could be not cool because I walk in the bathroom and I'm 54, or I walk in and I'm like not stick skinny. And it's like that is always going to be the case.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think, not to speak for communities out, that I'm not a part of, but I think that the more marginalized the groups, the more magnified the impact of everyday, things that people every day might feel, the more heightened that impact is going to be. So I hear that other people feel it. And it's definitely something that anybody who's listening to this could benefit from. At the end of the day, I'm very much somebody who's like, I don't care about society. Hence the like agender, non-binary, like don't put me in a box. It's not going to work. I think that acknowledging, because I hate these like trauma Olympics. This group feels more than the other. It's at the end of the day, none of us should be feeling this stuff. So I definitely understand that. And I think if we can create something that universally benefits all people, then that's what we should do. We should have that universal design. And so I think what you're saying, Robin, hits that universal design of like, hey, this is something that you as a trans person feel. But at the end of the day, we're all humans. And I love that. On my profiles, some of them, it says like Marz, human. Because at the end of the day, like we are just all human. There are good people, bad people, and they are of like it doesn't matter gender, race, sexuality, none of that matters. There are just people who have interests across the board. I like to say every sim exists, like the game Sims. You can create anything, anyone.
You really can.
They all exist. So
you know what's really hard is that like I keep getting like the image of like an alcoholic, and I'm not, stay with me, Steph. I'm not calling them alcoholics, but I am saying there is like this unwillingness to be open. It's like you could drop an alcoholic off at a 90-day meeting, but if they're not open, if they're not willing to see what's in front of them or to be honest, I mean, that's the whole tenet of 12 steps. If you don't have the ability to be honest, you can't recover. So if they're not willing to see you as a human being, they're never going to. And so like, what can we do? But that's the part that makes me sad is like, I used to be really big, and Steph and I have gone rounds about this, about being like, I'm here because I'm like an early lesbian, not early, but like, I mean, there was always lesbians, but like I'm a 90s lesbian. And we were of the mindset that we had to be out there educating people because they didn't know us and they didn't. And like, I think I might, Steph, but not sure yet, be coming around on this idea of like, it's not going to work if you go back to my alcohol. If they're not open, if they don't want to, then why am I wasting my energy trying to show you I'm a good person, that I'm just like you, that I should be a parent? At least right now, we're so polarized. People are so closed that like, I just can't focus on what they think or what they're doing, except for when you start taking away my rights, then we have to get in there. But other than that, like, I don't know, fucking hate me. And then I'm going to come back over to my community of people that love me and that give me 19 nice things to their horrible things. I don't know.
But it's not like all or nothing too. Like, I think, yes, fuck those people, but there are people on the inside of that. And I think if you are a person that has more privilege than other people, that's when you have to be like talking to those people, and you have to be standing up for. So it is a bit of the like, draw your boundary, but it's also like, where is your energy best serving you,
Yes,
and
that's what I was trying to say.
You have to fill your community cup, you have to fill your own cup, and then you take what's left over and like fight back.
Yeah, and I think I would say that I'm a student of Alok, non-binary individual, and just so beautiful in their poetry, in their wisdom, all of that. And one thing that they have spoken of before is this idea that, I'm done proving myself, right? Like,
yes.
I don't need to tell you that I deserve to have children and I should be able to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
We don't have to have those conversations. If you disagree on that, that's going to be a you problem. And please, by all means, do what you need to do with that. But at the end of the day, we need to have rights. And so that is, I think, that balancing act of like, sure, you don't have to like me. Society doesn't have to like me. That's wonderful. But how are we all going to coexist together? Like, what are we going to do about this? Because I'm not going anywhere and I'm going to continue to be who I am. So how are we all going to play together? So I think just in those interactions and understanding people, Steph, to your point, exactly, like if you have more privilege, and to those individuals who maybe I'm talking to in those situations have more privilege, I think that there is some onus and some responsibility on those people. And again, maybe they don't understand that. I don't know that that's okay, but it is what it is. But it's on them, in my opinion, to have more of an understanding and to realize that they don't have to get it for rights to be needed.
Yeah. And I think for you, it's telling yourself those things too, like, or for all of us, like, I think if you are going out into the world and being like, I am going to continue existing and I deserve rights, it's like giving yourself more of that messaging. And whether that's, a little mantra or a text group or whatever, making sure that you really believe that.
Yeah. Like having a few things in place, like when you go into those situations that suck, the public bathrooms, or, like when you're out in the world, like having a couple of go-to things you're going to do, that couple of people that are like, tell me that you come out and you had a bad experience in the bathroom, and you text Steph and you say, tell me 5 nice things about myself, like that you have that. I think some of it is just recognizing the toll it takes when you are out in the world and putting enough support in place. Because
I like that.
It's going to happen.
Maybe that's the homework. Because I was like, it sucks to give homework on this one because like living is homework right now. But maybe that is the homework, is it's like noticing when the moments feel especially bad, jot them down, and then like, let's come up with like a little system. Like if it's a bathroom, you can text me every time you go to the bathroom and I will be like, how was your shit? Let's talk about it. Let's high five virtually. Like, tell me 4 nice things about yourself. Like, let's go off. Or whatever it is, if it's like going to work meetings, it's like, okay, like what makes you feel shitty? Is it the way you show up like in your body? Is it the clothing? Is it how other people perceive you? Is it whatever? And like we can do positive things in the other direction before and after,
I think that's the most you can do because we're in the shit bucket. Like, I think if we were all to focus less on, I don't know, like how shitty it is and like the building ourselves back up, and then just like be like, I could see a future where this will be better. Because I have seen some of this change in my lifetime. I never thought I would be able to be married in my lifetime, or that I have kids and it would just be normalized. And it is, again, I'm in Brooklyn, but that happened in my lifetime. So why not this?
I have a question for you, if you don't mind, Robin.
Please.
I, too, like I remember growing up being like, oh, I'll never be, Rhode Island, luckily, was one of those states when it was a state-by-state thing where you could get married. And then we had same-sex marriage. And when we look at the direction of things, how do you cope with, or how do you deal, or, go on with the fact that we had all of this progress just to see a lot of that kind of turn around? I think of Roe v. Wade. And so I think to see that future, I mean, we had it, like we were living it. And I felt like there were some moments where it just felt smooth and comfortable and, miss those days. But at the same time, to then have that hope and then kind of like have it taken out from underneath you, and now everything's like up in the air. What are we doing? How do you maintain that initial hope? How do you get back there?
I mean, I think I'd say 2 things. And I think one is that goes back to like the scales thing I was saying earlier, of like constantly evaluating what are the boundaries and parameters. Like this is just like Robin, who's practical. So it's like I am having conversations with my daughter, like, I don't know, would you really want to go to a college in Florida? Like, what does that mean for you as someone who is bisexual? So like the scales part of it is the analyzing. So that's the one side of it. The other side of it is like, when I'm able to think this way, I think, isn't that true of everything? It's not linear. And I think when we start to think of growth as linear, I think that is a mistake, because it's like, I'm over here and then I zigzagged behind me, then I'm under the couch and then I'm over here. And then all of a sudden I rocket forward. You know, like 5 missteps will all feel like shit and could be horrible, but they could move us forward in ways that are unimaginable. And I have to try to remind myself of that. Like when I get down about my career or about like the world, and like, I just have to be like, I have to live in the idea of some possibility, because if I don't, then I'm like, well, we're all just going to die because we're not taking care of the planet. And that's a dark space I don't want to be in.
But I also think that comes back to like belief in yourself. Like when I think about career, it's like if I thought of a pivotal moment, like regardless of what decision I made, I would have been okay, because I will choose to be okay and I will choose myself and I will always do that. And it's like that comes back to like your belief in yourself, your goodness in yourself, your like being able to stay true to yourself. So I think that's like the thing that you have to like come away from this interview with, is just like loving you.
Yeah. Yes. And also adding on to what you're saying, Steph, it's the thing that we say the most in this podcast is we're never going to be fixed, but how can we find joy in more minutes in the day? And that's it. And that's why our homework to you is somebody did something mean. Let's give you 5 joyful moments on top of that.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think what I'm taking away from it is holding space for myself, also being present, and not necessarily future, thinking too much, and just knowing that in this moment I exist and what I have control over, what I don't have control over.
You exist and you're awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. So when you were talking about hope, and also like, we're talking about finding hope in these dark times, and it also made me think to what you were saying about, these things are always going on and we can't mark growth as a linear thing. Somebody once told me that when we have a blue president, we still have the same problems and there's still the same things going on, but people are maybe yelling about them a little less. But when we have a president who is red, things just get heightened and people actually start saying things and people actually start doing things, and we actually start seeing some of these protests and movements. And so I think that it reigns true. And I think that it's very relevant to this conversation in that, maybe having some of these more egregious things happening and some of these more uncomfortable situations just means that there's more progress to come, because we are actively taking the time to fight for it right now.
That's it. And I just want to say, first of all, I'm so thankful that you came on and trusted us to have this conversation. It's an important conversation, but like at least 4 times when you were talking, I thought, I hope someone in Iowa who is maybe not as open to this conversation hears you and says, oh, they seem like a really cool person. That would be fucking amazing. But no matter what, I feel like we all walk away from this conversation feeling a little bit better, a little more hopeful, even in a shit bucket. And I just am so thankful that you came on and chatted with us, because this was a really wonderful talk.
Likewise. Thank you for holding the space and for having this conversation and, being authentic with this as well. I know that this isn't a podcast that shies away from some of these conversations, but I also do appreciate you taking the time to talk about what we're doing here and how it impacts us on a day-to-day.
Existing.
Right, and start the text chain so we can all talk about how our butts look in pants.
Ooh.
Oh, that was such a lovely conversation. I mean, in spite of the world and all that's going on today and the people that are out there doing these horrible things, Marz is out here trying to spread joy and live a happy life. And in the middle of Pride Month, I can think of no better message. I mean, sometimes I think we need to remind ourselves that existing is our right, and it's also our form of protest. So let's keep on keeping on, friends. Well, that is it for us today. But before we go, I do want to say so many thanks to Marz for opening up and being brave and sharing their story with us. It was an absolute privilege to be a part of this conversation. for more Robin, and you may need that. You probably don't need it, but like if you do, you can follow me at Real Rob Hops on all the platforms, all the socials, as the kids today say. Well Adjusting is an Edit Audio original series. It's exec produced by Steph Colburn and Robin Hopkins. Our producer and editor is Maria Passingham, and our production manager is Kathleen Speckert. Thank you to the entire Edit Audio team and to you for listening. Oh, hey, before you take out those AirPods, this show is just for entertainment. If you are in need of help, please, please, please reach out to a professional. Go ahead and get that help. You deserve it.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.